Hello and welcome all to a new tutorial. I'm your instructor, Tim J. And yeah, first of all, if you want to look up my work, you can go on my website. If you want to support me, you can be a member for on my Patreon. For 15 bucks you will get a exclusive tutorial each month, and I'm of course also available on social media like Twitter, Instagram and so on. Okay, so today's video we will build something up from scratch, so this is like non-scripted process stuff. I challenged myself to like these 4 words, so growth, base geo, popsim and LookDev. So basically a growth effect, maybe on a base geometry with popsim and a final look development. And that's what we will do today, or try to accomplish. So we will of course first of all need a geometry container, so we can place our or we can start to build up our geometry. So you can do it with right click and then type geo for the geometry container, or you can just hit tab and type geo, and then we can dive inside. But first of all I will rename that to geo, let's call it base maybe. And with double click you can dive inside. So let's start with a simple sphere. So I will build up here a simple base geometry so we can make our growth and our maybe popsim growth effect on this base geometry. So I got a sphere here, and the primitive type is currently set on primitive. We need to change that, for example, to polygon to get a polygonal shape or a polygonal distribution for our sphere. And for example, the frequency is currently pretty low, so the frequency is 2. We can raise it up a little bit, so for example 15, to get a higher resolution on our sphere. So we now accomplished our first achievement, placing down a sphere. That's nice. What I want to do, I want to displace the sphere a little bit, to give it a little bit of a maybe more organic shape or more rough shape. So that's of course fully up to you. What I want to do, I want to dial up the frequency here much more, so for example to 50. Then I want to place down an attribute WOP. This is basically Vex but with nodes, and I want to rename that node here, for example create displacement. Now we can dive inside here. Well, let's just get here a null, so this will be our input geo. And now we can dive inside the WOP network here. And with this WOP network I want to displace basically the geometry, and I want to do that with maybe an anti-aliased noise. So we will drop down a noise here, and first of all let's move that up here a little bit. And what I want to do, I want to scale the sphere to like an egg shape. I think that's better. And now we can dive back inside. So we place down here the anti-aliased noise, or you can use other noises like the curl noise. You can use the, I think the most advanced noise like the pyro noise. Then there is the unified noise static. There is the parodic noise, the turbulent noise, the flow noise. So you can choose between a variety of different noises of course, but I will start with, I think the most common noises you will use is like the anti-aliased, curl noise, maybe the flow noise and the unified noise static, because with, for example, the unified noise, You got a good variety of other noise types, and then you of course can manipulate them further with other noise types. So I think the unified noise static is a good way to start. So let's get them here. And what we need to do, we need to connect, for example, the position, so the incoming position to the noise position. And now when we export basically our noise position, for example, to the color, you can already see we will manipulate our color on the geometry, and you can see the noise basically here. Let's dial it up a little bit more. And now when you play with the frequency, for example, or with the fractal type, you can generate and manipulate your noise. What I want to do, I want to basically get a pretty simple bass noise to get a simple shape. And I want to do, after the static noise or the noise, I want to place down a displace along normal. So this node will displace our given geometry in the normal direction, and we can pipe the position in here and the displace position to the new position. And you can pipe the normal in here, or if you got custom normals, you will need to pipe them in here, the normal vector, or basically the vector for the direction you want to displace the geometry. But we don't need that currently, and just, for example, pipe the noise in the amount, and you can already see we will displace our sphere here. So this is now really simple noise. This is the Simplex Noise. What you can do, for example, get the hybrid terrain involved here, and you can already see a lot more detail here. So just with a unified noise static, simplex, and a fractal type of hybrid terrain on a roughness of currently 0.25, you will already get a much more complex geometry. The cool thing is what you can do, for example, you can animate that whole thing if you want to. For example, a vector to vector 4, you can get that, pipe that in here. And now you need a fourth given value, for example time, and then can you basically animate the noise here and make this blobby looking deforming thing. And you even can scale up here the noise scale to make it more dramatic. So that's pretty cool. I really love WOPs because it's like a really nice way of create noises especially and layer them on top of each other. So I will delete that, and let's get that noise here. And what I want to do, I want to manipulate now the frequency here. So let's go for a constant a frequency, and let's go for a really low frequency, for example 0.5 maybe. And what I want to do, I want to increase the length here a little bit, or the scale in the y direction. And let's disable here the fractal type. And what I want to do, maybe increase the scale a little bit. Maybe just leave it 1. And then let's play with different noises here. For example, the cellular is really nice in my opinion. Looks pretty cool. And then you of course can play with the different noises. For example, Manhattan, cellular F2, cellular F1, simplex, flow noise, alligator noise, sparse convolution, and a fast noise. So like the cellular F1 will give you like already a really rocky shape, I find it pretty cool. And this is like basically an inverted cellular noise. I really liked it too, so let's keep that noise here. And what I want to do, I want to multiply this noise with an anti-alias noise. And if you hit up the question mark here on the anti-alias noise, you will see that the noise output of the anti-alias noise is from -0.1 to 0.1. So we need to fit that, for example. So you don't need to do that, but you can do it. What I want to do, I want to basically multiply those both noises here. So let's just pipe that into the amount. And let's have a look here. So this is like our anti-alias noise. I will decrease the frequency a little bit. And now you can straight in multiply that, of course. And now what you also can do, let's fit that. So what I want to do, I want to fit it from -0.5 to 0.5, and then you can basically adjust that. So you can go back to -0.25, for example. So that's fully up to you. Let's go for a higher amplitude here. Maybe something like that. And here we can play a little bit with the frequency. And of course with the offset, so you can play with the offset here. So for example, something like that. So this will be our base shape. But what I want to do, I want to remesh it one time and then again apply maybe a noise onto it. So we will place down a VDB from polygons. And after the VDB from polygons, I want to place down a convert VDB here. And let's get a higher resolution here, for example 0.01. And convert that back to polygons. And what you can do, you can do several steps, for example, between your VDB from polygons and your convert VDB. For example, you can smooth the thing out with a VDB smooth SDF. So you can smooth it out to like get like a base shape, and then reapply some noise on top of it. And of course scale it down, for example, and now get the offset. So you can basically reapply a noise, for example. But what I want to do, I want to quickly get just a mountain here and play with that. So height. So the mountain is like a quick node to apply a noise to geometry. Of course, in WAPs you can build it up like with your own custom thing, but you can use like the mountain for like a quick noise here. So think hybrid terrain. Let's go for hybrid terrain. Roughness. Let's go to 0.75 here. Okay, cool. So this is, for example, our base geometry here. So let's copy the null here and call that output for maybe mask. because what I want to do, I want to place down a sphere here, and we will play with our growth effect. Again, raise the frequency a little bit. I want to connect a transform to it, so I can move it in 3D space. Of course, you can also do it here, but I like to be a little bit more flexible. And a mask from geometry. Mask from geometry, pipe that into here, and the reference geometry is our sphere. And what I want to do, I want to scale that a little bit, 0.25 for example, and move it like up here. So let's move that like here, looking pretty good. And when you enable here the mask from geometry, you can already see we've got a mask here. You can play here with the radius, and what I want to do, I want to manipulate here our fall off a little bit, so we will get something like that, like a band fall off. So basically like a banding mask that travels over our geometry. Let's make that a little bit thinner. And now the cool thing is, you can animate it of course, but you can also use like $t for the $time expression, so it will automatically travel over your geometry. Or you can animate it, because I find a pretty good value of 1.7 or maybe 1. Let me just get here like a or let's go back to and make it linear. I think linear would be the easiest thing now. So we will basically start here on frame 24 for example, so you can write that frame down or just make a quick note, because later we will source basically on frame 24. And what I want to do now, I want to place a scatter. So a scatter will, on default settings, will place down points on the geometrical surface. But what we want to do, we want to enable here the density attribute and pipe the mask in here. And now what you can see, we will get the mask with the points traveling along our geometry. And just to be sure, I want a different seed each frame, so $f into the global seed. That's looking good. Nice. So what I want to do now, I want to place a pop network here, pipe that in here. And now I think it was frame 24. So source will be all points and birth will be $FF bigger than 24. So we will source basically on the 24th frame. Let me just drink something. And sorry, what we then can do, you can already see it here, like the sourcing effect or the growth effect. What I want to do, I want to maybe just get 5 particles here, and then we can already see the growth effect. And of course this growth effect is now pretty static. What I want to do, I want to trail it later to get like a 3-dimensional growth effect. Of course this growth effect is now 3-dimensional too, but I want to like let them the points like swirl away when they will get placed here. And the cool thing is we can pretty easily do that. So we got here a scatter node, and what I want to do, I want to apply on our geometry, I want to apply point normals, and now the scattered points here will imply the point normals from our input geometry. And what we can do, we can use a little bit of Vex here to get the normal as a velocity attribute to drive our particles. So what I want to do, I want to type add n, then time e equals, so we will basically manipulate the vector magnitude by a certain value. So I will go for rand function, add ptnum, so this will be basically a seed +1 to get rid of the 0 offset, and multiply that again by a channel float and call that, let's call that seed. And what I want to do, I want to fit that. So fit 0, 1. And I want to fit that between two channel floats, like a minimum value, and again channel float, maximum value, so max. And I will basically multiply that whole thing by a mult value, so like an overall multiplier. And what I wanted to then is v at v, so this will be our velocity, equals at n. And this should work. So seed, let's get a min and a max value here. And of course the multiplier here. And you can already see, let's go here for a higher point value. You can already see here when I scrub like the seed, the min, you can basically adjust the strength of your vector here, or of your velocity. So what we need to do, let's go for 25 for example. Birth, we will go on the attribute tab and it's already there, so inherit velocity is 1. So we will inherit velocity that is based on the points, and when we play that now, you can see our particles will fly away a little bit. So that's cool. I will go back for like 5 points here. And what I want to do, I want to introduce a little bit of an imperfection value. Of course you can only do it with pop wind, but I think like the combination of inherit velocity and pop wind is a little bit more appealing. So pop wind here with an amplitude of 0.25. And what we then can do, let's go here for dop import. So I want to import my points, drag and drop the dop network in here. Object mask will be the pop object. And I want to fetch the geometry here. That's nice. And then I want to trail it, for example. Let's go for $fend. Connect these polygons, disable the close rows here. And what we can basically do, merge our geometry with our effect here. And let's let that play. And we will get basically like this, first of all we will get this surface growth effect, and we will get on top of that this line growth effect. So now let's pipe that up a little bit. Okay. maybe 25 points here. And of course, what you can use, you can maybe use like the wind velocity direction to even influence that a little bit more. So for example, get that slightly arced growth here. So something like that. That looks pretty cool. And of course you can also get the amplitude a little bit higher. Let's just let it cache a little bit here. That's looking good. That's looking good. Nice. So this is like now our growth effect here. What you can do, for example, on the trail, you can resample it. So to introduce like a curve view here. And with the curve view, it's basically an attribute that will sit on a point from values from 0 to 1. Let's show you, let me show you that attribute. So this is like our attribute, and we can use that for shading, for example. So what I want to do is like place down here a null, so we will export that into a separate geometry container. So this will be outlines, for example, and of course you can then make your own research or R&D to now manipulate them further, introduce vellum hair, place little flowers on top, deal with motion, carve them. So that's of course fully up to you. So we got here our outlines, and we got here our out base, and I will place down a material here. Whoops, not a magnet. A simple material node. R as mat, and we will export the lines here. So let's, we can, of course we can keep them the merge here, for example, and what I like to do is like place a null here and give it another color and call this visualize, so you can see it basically. And now we got our rs mat, so we will need a material network, so I will call this rs mat, and a rob network. So this is our rs out. Let's dive inside here, place a redshift node. What I want to use, let's go brute force, system, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And we will need two materials. So let's call one rs base, so place down a redshift material builder, and we need a rs, maybe let's call it line mat, and this is our base mat, or base material. And let's dive up, and what we now need to do is like basically import our lines. So Geolines, let's get an object merge, and you can, for example, hit Shift W to get a tree viewer here, and just drag and drop the outlines in here into this object. And you basically now imported your lines into a separated geometry container. So outlines. And here important thing what we need to do is to go on the Redshift OBJ tab on strands and render object as cylinders, or basically strips. I will disable the max tessellation and the global scale. Let's go to 0.1, for example. What you also can do, if you want to render that as geometry, you can of course place, for example, a polywire here. Make it like 16. So you can do that of course too. That's fully up to you. But if you got here like 500 or more, it will get pretty heavy to calculate. So this is now our growth here. So we got our Rs mad and Rs out. We need a camera. No, not that one. A camera. So let's click on the log here and let's get here a sweet angle. I will call that camera. Let's call it close up 001 and change the resolution. Focal length, I will go for a longer focal length, like 85 millimeters. Something like that. And let's copy the focus distance. And we can enable depth of field. And I will use a bokeh image. That one here. And now what we can do, we can basically, for example, drop in a dome light. Rs dome, Rs dome 001. And you just get a quick render impression. That one. And now we need to link our materials. So this will be the base and our line material. And let's start here the Redshift render view. Oh, it's fully out of focus. Nice. Cool. So let's replace our focus, and you, of course you will see the lines, but they're pretty thin. So let's increase our global scale multiplier here. Yeah, that's much more appealing. Now let's rotate that a little bit, like maybe a backlighting. And now you can play with the materials basically. Let's import our curve view. Curve view here. And the cool thing is you can also use this mask, for example. You can blur it a little bit in the animation and use that, for example, in the shading too. So I'll pipe that into the diffuse color. And I want to ramp it, for example. So let's have a look on our lines here. Let's make them a little bit thicker again. Oh, I think that was a little bit too thick. 0.5 maybe? 0.2. No, wait, 0.35. So what we basically can do, let's dive in here and make another WOP, so an attribute WOP, not a height field WOP. An attribute WOP. I want an attribute WOP. There is it. Let's dive in here, and we got a curfew attribute. We'll bind that in, so we will import it. Curfew. And I want to ramp it. And I want to bind export it out with a multiplier on the P scale. Let's get a parameter to scale it, or to post scale our ramp here. Let's go for a ramp like that. 0.01. Let's just start the render process here. Yeah, that's much better. So now we will basically use the curfew as a fall off. And of course, what you can do, you can do like 0.1 here. And you can even get like a B-spline involved to make it a little bit smoother. And now let's get some more here. So let's get the double amount. I think we need to zoom out a little bit. Yes, nice. And then we can play with the base material, of course, a little bit. For example, a max and noise. Let's drop that down. I will go for Luca here maybe, and scale it a little bit up. And I will use that for just a simple bump map here. Bump input. Of course, it's way too high, so we need to scale that down a little bit. 0.01, something like that. And now we can use like two noises. Like one is the Luca, let's get away from the zero offset, and the other one, let's go for a wavy turbulence with a smaller scale, or a Displacement Noise, also nice. That's a good question. Let's go for the Displaced Turbulence and composite. I want to composite both to an average. Let's use a ramp here. Pipe that into the surface, and now we can pipe that into diffuse color a little bit, and yeah, get a little bit of color variation in here. Of course, you can also imply like the orange of the growing lines. And that into roughness. Let's use another ramp on the roughness here. So it's like fully up to you how you will shade it, but just to give you a little bit of an idea. And of course, how you will light it, fully up to you. Let's have a look on like the beginning. Yeah, that's sweet. That's sweet. Of course, you can also make it like really subtle, like fully white, fully black, high key, low key. And yes, so I hope you you liked this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one. So have a great day and stay safe.